Okay, this is a follow-up video to the one I made previously about explaining to you the true nature of the universe, which is hollow and inverted and tiny, and the Earth is actually just the outside surface of the entire universe. It's the outer shell, so therefore Earth is not a planet. Okay, a planet is a spherical object that actually orbits inside the Earth. So Earth is just a housing. It's like a womb, okay? That's why we call it Mother Earth, because it's an encasement for the entire universe. It means that the planets are small. Planets are probably about the size of a house. Okay, the moon is small, the sun is small. They're all inside the Earth. All the stars above are all small and tiny. There's no spin to Earth, okay? I told you that. There's much proof that there is no spin to Earth. The whole Copernican theory is based on faulty theory. And it was actually, I think it was accepted by Galileo and the intelligentsia because they wanted vengeance against the church that was persecuting them. There is no, and I repeat, there is no evidence whatsoever that the Earth spins. On the contrary, there's much evidence. There's much evidence that the Earth does not spin, unlike the camera. Got the Sagnac experiment. It has to do with light being divided or split and reaching the target at the same time. I'm not going to go into detail. I made a video about that if you want. You can look for that. There's also the Aries failure, where he conducted an experiment with telescopes where he put water in telescopes because it would slow down the light, and basically he found out that if the Earth were spinning, you would have to tilt the telescope 10 degrees more or 5 degrees more than it was initially tilted. If there was no spin to the Earth, you won't have to tip the telescope. There's also the Michelson-Morley experiment, which they failed to detect what they thought. They failed to detect the ether. However, the ether is there. They just were on the faulty presupposition that the Earth was spinning. Okay, I made other videos about that too. There's no evidence. There's a thing called the Foucault pendulum. It's a full fault pendulum. Okay, it's a fraud. It gets affected by tides, and it gets affected by the eclipse, solar eclipses. It has to be nudged every once in a while. There's no spin to Earth, okay? That's very important because it's going to fall into what's about to take place prophetically, I believe. Okay, I drew this diagram before. I explained to you that in the center of Earth is heaven. So this is a literal heaven. Earth is 8,000 miles wide, okay? So 4,000 miles would be the center of the Earth, where light is emanating from and hitting the back of the sun, and the sun is illuminating half of the world, basically, because it's a direct light. It's not a ball of light. It has a dark side to it. I saw this in a vision. Okay, there's two levels of water. You have the celestial ocean, you have the terrestrial ocean. During the flood, the celestial ocean flood came down and it flooded the terrestrial ocean. It covered the land, it covered the continents. Sand came down, formulated a glass barrier in the sky here, 62 miles high. I told you about that earlier. There's plenty of proof that there's a glass sky. Okay? I told you how everything is spinning inside the Earth due to the electromagnetism of the central celestial octahedron. And the octahedron, basically, or actually, let me go back. Talk about, well, also too, they'll tell you that the Earth wobbles when it spins. No, that's not true. What's wobbling is the central celestial sphere, basically, or the ecliptic of the sun. See, the sun is moving like this, but it's oscillating in a helical orbit or a cylindrical orbit every 6 months. So this is the, don't you fall on me, camera. if that is tropic zone. So basically you got the Tropic of Capricorn and the Tropic of Cancer there. So the sun is every 6 months, okay? And then when it gets to the extremes, it kind of does a little bit of variance basically before it heads back in the other direction. So that's the wobble, the so-called wobble, okay? All right. A couple experiments that were conducted in the early 1900s that proved that the curvature of the Earth is concave. Okay? One is called the rectilineator experiment. Okay, the second one is called tamarack mine shaft plumb bob experiment. These two experiments they prove that the curvature of the Earth is curving upward. First one was conducted by Cyrus Teed. Cyrus Teed. This was back in 1897. Cyrus Teed was actually the first man to propose that the Earth was inverted. And he met a lot of scorn and criticism, just kind of like how I am doing too. He also believed in reincarnation. I wonder if there's a connection there. Anyway, he had a commune down in Florida, on Naples Beach in Florida. He developed a series of perpendicular apparatuses, 12 feet long, okay? Perfectly straight, reinforced this way, reinforced here, perfectly plumb, perfectly level. He hung them on these little stands, not little stands, they're about 8 feet tall stands. Okay? He hung these rectilineator bars on these stands here. It's a very accurate experiment. He invited witnesses, objective witnesses from scientific communities, made sure there's no cheating whatsoever, and basically on the beach you have water level, okay? You have water level. This camera's not being straight. You have a water line, okay? That's your water level, okay? So you have a hash mark here. And this is all done with plumb bobs and spirit levels, making sure that this initial post is extremely, perfectly straight, perfectly horizontally straight. And you measure the height of that hash mark with the water line, basically. Okay, there's the water line. And now you piggyback these. There's about 3 or 4 of these, okay? You take the last one and you move it to the front, okay? And you're creating this virtual straight air line. This would be a virtual air line that you're creating. Once you're going this way, let's say. So the airline is being made as you traverse along the beach, okay? And you're incrementally making measurements as you go. If this height decreases, you conclude that the curvature of the Earth is curving upward, okay? And that's exactly what happened. The predictions, the calculations even made prior to the experiment, and what was actually found out to be the case were that he extended this virtual airline for 2 3/8 miles, basically this way, southward, down along the beach. And it proved accurately and incrementally, he predicted it, and the results were very, very close to what he actually predicted. If the height was actually, obviously, if it was increasing as you go, then you conclude that the Earth is convex. So this experiment proved that it's concave. Now there's an idiot guy, Donald Simonek, a retired physicist who I debated with a long time ago, 9 years ago. He has a web page that he's debunking this experiment. Well, he's saying that all the measurements were true and accurate. He's saying that there's a problem. There was a problem with, actually he have these support posts over here, basically, I think. Yeah, the posts are not over here. They're not in the center. They're actually over here like that. He's saying there's a problem with the ends of the posts. He's suggesting that this part past the support bar is actually, he thinks it was wilting down like that. So he's saying that he was saying that the apparatus had found fault with it. And I said, bullshit, that's speculation. Man, why don't you reconduct the experiment if you really think so? The biggest question of all is why, since 1897, has this experiment never been reconducted? Why? What are they afraid? Huh? Instead, they sweep it under the rug. The idiots, whoever they are, whether there's a Zionist conspiracy or whether it's just a bunch of idiotic people. Basically, you see, this true nature of the earth, there's no money. There's no money in this. Okay? This is God. You can either love God and love the false way or love money. There's no money in believing, in telling people the true nature of the world, of the universe. But there is judgment. There is judgment day approaching because this true and accurate model of the universe actually proposes the fact that the sun could stop because the earth is stationary and the sun is moving. Yeah, well, see, mankind doesn't want to admit that. They don't want to acknowledge that. Okay. The second one I want to tell you about was this Tamarack mine shaft. In Michigan, Tamarack, Michigan. Tamarack, Michigan, back in 1901. And also in France. I'm not sure of the city, but it was actually reproduced in France as well. They were scratching their heads once again because what they did, there was two separate mine shafts. Okay? They were 1,450 feet apart. They were also 1,450 feet deep. Okay, there was a well between the two shafts. Now they hung a long piano wire down the shaft. Put I think it was a lead plumb bob at the bottom. Same thing over here. What they were wanting to find out, basically, because they initially thought that the distance here would be shorter than the distance between the two wires at the top. That was not the case, obviously. I'm bringing this up because these two bobs diverged. They diverged. 8 inches, 8.2 inches, 8.22 inches. That means they went that way. They went apart. Okay? They reconducted it. They made sure there was no magnetic repulsion or whatever. Same results, basically. They even initially they hung the two lines down one shaft, and it even diverged slightly from the one shaft as well. So what that's saying is basically is if you extend these two lines, if I exaggerate that here a little bit more, let's say they're more like that, okay? The center of gravity is not down below, it's actually above. It's 4,000 miles into the sky, up above, which so happens to be the radius of the Earth. Interesting, very, very interesting. I wonder why. You guys starting to see a picture here, huh? Cyrus Teed, let's bring him back up again, back in Chicago. In the distance you see a ship, but you don't see the entire ship, right? You only see part of the hull. The other part is submerged. It looks like it's submerged underwater. That's with your naked eye. Don't you fall on me again, Cameron. That's with your naked eye, okay? Well, I guess what it's doing basically is your eye is actually warping the surface, the foreground surface of the water is actually causing it to bulge, because it's just an optical illusion. Because when you look at that through a telescope, the ship, you see the entire hull of the ship that's above the water. So the telephoto lens will correct it, or a telescope. Okay? That's a myth that is debunked, that they don't really like to mention, do they? No, they don't. Okay. Talk a little bit more about lenses. We'll talk about NASA. You guys seen some of my video footage where I talk about NASA. When you go up, or even when that guy went up in a balloon and he filmed the Earth, it's through a wide-angle lens. Wide-angle lens. NASA. Skullduggery. They know. They know they're just spinning inside the Earth. What they do is they'll take a time-lapsed footage of, you ever see that where it looks like, they're going across the Earth, and you see the contents. Well, first of all, the land masses that they're showing you, they're completely blown out of proportion. Okay? Whenever they show you an image of the Earth, okay, whatever's in the middle, whatever landmass is in the middle, let's say North America is in the middle there, okay? You're going to see this out of proportion, landmass, because it's going through a wide angle. And that's what they do. They're only probably about 100 to 150 miles high. And they're just taking a camera with a fisheye lens and just pointing it straight down to the ground. Don't fall on me, camera. And that's you can do this. You can do the exact same thing in reverse. If you're on the ground, take a fisheye lens and point it straight up to the sky, and the sky will look like a planet. Reinforce this camera here. Okay, it's the same thing. You can look at the sky. You'll see the clouds in the sky, right? It looks like a planet. It's just a fisheye lens, basically. That's all they're doing. So when they're making this moving footage of traversing across the Earth, well, first of all, this is not a true, accurate horizon. They're just a wide-angle lens. Secondly, the land mass is out of proportion. Thirdly, what they don't show is they don't pan the camera left to right when they're going forward. Because if they did, this curved line, this so-called horizon line, would stay the same. Now, if the Earth was truly convex and you're traversing across it like that, at that altitude, and you panned left to right, the entire sphere would move out of the picture frame. That's another way you can detect it too. Same thing with that one balloon guy. Check out his video. He pans across a little bit like that, and the horizon, the so-called horizon, stays the same. That wouldn't happen. Same thing if you're on an airplane, you're looking out a window. Okay, you're in the Concorde, right? Wrong. It's straight. It's just an optical illusion, because what you're doing, basically, what you're seeing out the window, you're seeing the clouds. Even you don't see a curvature when you're in a commercial aircraft, and I guess when you're in a Concorde you may, but that's not a true curvature of the Earth. From your naked eye, okay, folks, you cannot see curvature of the horizon. It's a fallacy. It's a hoax. It's a myth. You can only see curvature through a wide-angle lens. And another very important thing of the horizon and how you view it is that it's at your eye level. It always stays at eye level, no matter how high, no matter how high you're at, no matter what altitude you're at. The horizon's always going to be at eye level. So you're looking out that airplane window and you see the horizon, you see the clouds. It's always at your eye level. if you're truly, if you were truly on a convex ball, okay, the horizon, first of all, would not be at your eye level. It would be lower. It would be down by here, and you would see more curvature like that. But that's not the case. This is not how it is. This is true. This is reality. It's an optical illusion, folks. It's trickery. Okay, well, this was just a little follow-up video to the one I initially made on this one. So, there's other things I could talk about. I could talk about ball lightning, how that's formed by the fact that there's glass in the sky. There's an Australian scientist who just brought that up. He said, yes, ball lightning is created because of glass. But it's not only created inside rooms or airplanes, it's created in the middle of the sky sometimes. And so there's no glass in that vicinity. So that glass is up in the sky, 62 miles high. Satellites, space vehicles, they are orbiting inside here. Yes, they do penetrate the glass, the satellites do. And just because they make a little hole in the glass, it doesn't mean it's all going to come crashing down. And we're talking about like a 7,000 mile wide glass bubble here. And also there's not much, it's perfectly balanced up there. It's not going to come crashing down like that if they make a few little holes in it. And so what they're doing is just orbiting inside. They're orbiting inside the Earth. All the planets are orbiting. The comets, Halley's Comet. The reason why the comet has a tail and it's curved like that and it's split into the reds and the blues has nothing to do with solar wind or any stupid other reason. It's called chromatic aberration. It's due to glass. Okay, it's due to the fact we see the glass in the sky. And it's curved like that because it's refracting. And it's split like that because the reds and blues have different indexes of refraction. The blue has a higher index than the red. So they split like that. That's all it is, folks. It's amazing. Now when you have this perspective, this true perspective, take a look at some of the imagery that they show you of the stars and galaxies and realize how tiny and small they are. No, they never went to Mars. That was filmed somewhere in the desert, okay? And there's a lot of CG work behind it. And also what NASA and other agencies do, what they are caught doing, they're so-called spacewalks, it's in an underground pool. You'll see the little air bubbles floating up. Don't believe them. Stop believing NASA, okay? NASA is full of shit. Period. You should have stopped believing them when you started realizing all those moon photographs, those supposed moon photographs were hoaxed. Just bullshit, guys. Don't believe it, all right? Come on. They laugh at you. Remember my bull? Buzz the Bull, and that's the bullshitter? They're just bullshitting you, okay? It's all bullshit. Don't be fooled anymore, okay? Humble yourself. Admit it. What's keeping you from admitting it is your pride, you scientific man. But this is true science. This is the truth. So, that's all for now. That's the seal. That's my seal. That's the seal of the living God. And that will be implemented upon humanity to bring peace to the people of the world. Very soon.